Oh, son, Nellie spoke.
All right,
All right, Chair Medina, we're ready.
yes, calling this meeting of Thursday, July 23rd, 2026 for Westlife Energy. We need a roll call.
When I call your jurisdiction, if you please state your name, San Mateo County, just need to know. You. San Mateo County. Atherton. Belmont,
McHugh, present.
Brisbane,
Colleen Mackin, I'm joining you under Just Cause exemption tonight.
thank you, Colleen, and is there anyone in the room over the age of 18 with you?
Absolutely not. Thank you.
Burlingame,
Heck no.
Colma, Daly City, East Palo Alto,
Councilmember Martha Berrigan, alternate Just Cause number 2.
thank you, Martha, and is there anyone over the age of 18 in the room with you?
No.
Okay, thank you. Foster City, Half Moon Bay,
Patrick Johnson.
Hillsborough,
Leslie Rexio.
Los Banos. Give me just a moment here because I believe that they are there.
Just to describe.
We'll circle back to Los Banos. Menlo Park,
Betsy Nash.
you, Millbrae,
Andrew Scott.
Pacifica,
Christine Bowles.
Portola Valley,
Craig Taylor.
Redwood City, San Bruno,
Marty Medina.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Adam Moran.
South San Francisco.
Jim Coleman.
What's that? Okay, thank you, and circling back to Los Banos, we do have a forum, but let's see if we can get them on the line here. I'll keep tabs on that, we do have a forum, so we can proceed.
Excellent. Public comment.
If there are any members of the public who'd like to give comment for an item that's not on the agenda, if you'll please raise your hand in the Zoom app or in the room, which looks like it might be all staff. I see no public comment.
Good.
Our next item on the agenda is an action to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda items? No public in the room and maybe one member of the public online. I see no hands raised. Would you like to call for a motion?
Yes,
So moved.
so moved, Mr. Lorraine.
Second.
Second over there at Bowles.
Yeah. And
Roll
how
call.
we heard, here we are. Is online. Give me 1 second. So that you can participate in the roll call. Oh, okay, he's online. Okay, for the consent calendar, motion on the table, San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton, Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame, Colma, Daly City, East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City, Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Aye.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside. And motion passes. Thank you.
Fantastic.
The next item on our agenda is the chair report.
Yes, I have a chair report and I believe I have a couple slides up.
Okay.
Here we go. Fantastic. First thing, just want to let everybody know, in case you've been wondering or been contacted by others, the Bay Area Air District water heater vote is set for November 4th. The comments are due August 13th. Westlight is not filing formal comments. And we're looking at a board update at the September meeting, the board of directors meeting for some discussion or get an update on what's happening. Number two, our CEO will be submitting, sharing through our council the fiscal year goals. So as it says right there in early August, so stay tuned for that on your email. And item number three is on July 29th. We're having an EV ready ribbon cutting in South San Francisco. And you can look up on the screen there. It's at Peninsula Pine from 11:45 to 2 p.m. Celebrating 200 ports installed, the largest multifamily installation in the state. That's pretty good. I was just advised from our CEO that it's a sold out event, but there's always room for you. So if you want to go, I mean, it's cool. I mean, you get to see all of us together and you can make it. It's going to be fantastic. Peninsula Pines Apartments, the address 842 Antoinette Lane in South San Francisco. Just let Natalie know if you're interested in attending. Okay. I think that's it for me.
On to the chair report. I mean, the CEO report.
Yes.
What day is it?
Again?
All right, I've got my brain strapped on. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm really glad to see you all this evening. All right, so we've got a number of things to report on, just general progress updates. The first is that I think all of you know that we were awarded the microgrid funding through
Nice.
PG&E. Yay. We can say it now publicly. One of, I believe, 6 projects in the state of California. And the agreement has been signed, and so now we are free to issue a joint press release, which we will be doing with the county. Good to see you, Jagmeet, and as well as PG&E. So our communications teams are in touch. Look for that around the 10th of August or so. Also want to let you know in the not so great news category, but not the end of the world, that we are going to have a delay in the launch of our residential solar plus storage program. It's frustrating because this program has taken a while to get off the ground, but what's going on is that our primary vendor, who had been selected through a competitive bidding process, has now decided not to do residential solar as part of their business portfolio, which makes it awfully hard for us to continue to work with them. So we're working with Jen and the programs team to figure out whether or not we can work with the second place bidder or reissue some kind of an RFP to get that program back on track. So we'll keep you guys posted as that goes, but it is delayed for now. Also did want to let you know, many of you know, I think that Raphael and team have been working on the potential for third-party financing to continue our GovPV projects. We have been talking with iBank for the better part of a couple of years, it seems like. Finally, we had good response all the way through. It made it through loan committee, but it turns out that the interest rate is simply too high for these projects to pencil. So we are kind of retreating and going to regroup and figure out, okay, for GovPV 4, whatever that's going to look like, how are we going to get these done in a way that still manages to bring economic value to our member agencies? So stay tuned. We will have an update on that as well. But unfortunately, the iBank option seems to be off the table for now. Back to good news, the new office is coming right along. They started demolition right on the designated date of July 15th. A few of us have been over there to see it. And it is a mess for sure, but on track right now for an early October move-in. We did get the permit from the city of San Mateo, so check on that. And we are looking at furniture selection. If you were in the back, you might have noticed a bunch of chairs, taking votes. Can't believe how expensive chairs are. It is silly. So we are also looking at options for gently used secondhand chairs. There's an outfit in the Bay Area that does this for all the firms that have gone out of business. So we're really looking to mix and match to keep our furniture costs down. Okay. For the rebrand, we are smack in the middle of that. So you might remember that last month when we met, the very next day, we were going into the weekend period of just all of our systems transitioning over to Westlight. And I have to just have a huge shout out to our IT team and our call center team, the website team. Everything went flawlessly. And we have a new portal now called Okta that we are using that just streamlines all of our different softwares and makes everything so much easier. And it took a couple days for us, all of the kinks to be worked out, but we really had no interruption of service at all. So hats off to IT. We are this week started the beginning of the new updated bills going out to customers. So that's starting this week. And then of course it's rolling right throughout the month and then ongoing. The joint rate mailer, which I'll just quickly show you. You'll see that's got our new branding and then formerly Peninsula Clean Energy. This is what it looks like. We're not going to go through all this. This is basically a summary of last year's portfolio. It's a legally required mailer, but that went out or is going out, excuse me, tomorrow, I think, by email.
Emails started today.
Oh, today.
I got that
The
email.
postcards
Oh, good.
will start shipping actually tomorrow.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Hold on, I'm going the wrong direction. So, so that will start happening. And so what we do expect that there will be a little bit of uptick in call center volume. And I'll have an update there for you in just a minute. But we also today dropped a video, a rebrand video, which I'll share with the board. It's making its way around social media today. In August, we're then launching a bunch of program marketing for our various programs and campaigns. In September, we launch our Caltrain campaign where we're wrapping a number of trains on track for cleaner future is the theme. We have impact campaign paid advertising starting in early September. We are in the middle of producing a 10-year documentary, which we'll be showing at our Impact Summit on September 30th, and a 10-year impact report, which is a little bit like an annual report, only it's a summary of 10 years of just incredible accomplishment. And it's inspiring. So we're looking forward to sharing all of that with you going forward. Already looked at that. Thank you, Leslie and team, for getting all of that done. Really quick, we're going to just show you the video. There are 30-second and 15-second pieces of this on social media. But let's just play the whole thing.
For 10 years, Westlight Energy has quietly been powering this community's daily life. In homes, neighborhoods, the daily drive, businesses, and public spaces. Our community chose something better. Cleaner electricity for the cities we serve. The people of San Mateo County and Los Banos. We're Westlight Energy, your community electricity provider. Sourcing clean and renewable electricity from solar, wind, water, and geothermal. Powering your homes, your schools, your libraries, and your local businesses every single day. As a public agency, we put people over profits, meaning more money goes where it matters most, back into our community. Since 2016, we've invested over $100 million to make our public spaces cleaner, healthier, and less expensive to operate. These spaces bring people together. It's about powering Main Street, not Wall Street. We've given over $225 million back to you, our customers, by keeping electricity costs lower. On average, that's one free week of electricity for every customer every year. And we won't stop there. By investing over $30 million in zero-interest loans and rebates, more people can get cheaper hot water, heat and cool their homes, and save with solar and batteries. We're also making it easier for people to have an electric car by providing more rebates and by installing more charging stations. Helping our customers make the switch no matter where they live. Say hello to Westlight Energy. We're on a mission to share the benefits of clean community power. We call it Power with Purpose.
Well done.
Yeah, congratulations to Gwen, Kirsten Gruen, and the whole marketing team, along with Good Stuff Partners for that. So you'll see clips of that. Please forward it as you see it coming across your feed. We want to get the word out. Okay, here just for the contact center, and really, was the thing, and I've said this before, that was keeping us up at night a little bit, for the name change in terms of just having it trigger, opt-outs. Obviously, that's our revenue. In the month of July so far, we've only had 5 opt-outs. So, like I said, we may see a small uptick, but so far it's really been nominal, and our call center has done a great job answering questions and keeping our customers at the table. So it's all gone smoothly, and we hope here for the next couple of months as the bills come out and everything else that it will continue to just be kind of a non-issue. So I also now I'm going to turn to the board survey. I want to appreciate the 15 of you that submitted surveys. That's about a 65% return rate. I'm going to just run through these quickly. And if anyone wants a copy of the full survey result with, some other comments that were made, I'm happy to send it out to you after the meeting. So really quickly, just to run through these. This first slide is about board communications and how much do you want in terms of contact? So the 67% there represents the greatest majority that says, I would like to meet or talk to the CEO and the chair. No set schedule, just as needed. And then the 27% block is, I believe, once or twice a year at a council briefing. So this is what we already do. So I don't anticipate massive changes in terms of our communication timing, unless you all want it. Then we're all ears. For the newsletter, back in the day, we used to send the newsletter. I feel like was it weekly, maybe? And there wasn't enough new stuff, frankly, to populate a newsletter. So we now do it bi-weekly, and judging on the results, 60% are saying that is the right cadence. Another 40% said we could drop it to monthly if needed. Thankfully, all of you know there is a newsletter, so that's great. So we're just gonna hold steady at our current practice there. So when it comes to communications, just general, how much you hear from us, we feel like 1, you don't get enough information, or 5, you get too much. 3 is just right. So the vast majority said 3, just right, with a few of you saying, yeah, maybe it's a little too much. So we will take a look at that and see if there's a way to just streamline emails and things like that. But the good news is I'd rather be doing too much than too little. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape there. All right. In general, I think the board packets are, so does that say 67% or 87%? Thank you. I know, I really need some better eyes. We're going to have better audio visual in our new place. 87% says that the packets are just right, just the way they are. And then just a few people said they're a little bit, too long. During the board meeting, I think agenda item presentations are, again, the vast majority said fine. The 29% refers to that the staff presentations are good, but some folks want more time for board discussion. So I think it's just good, good awareness for us. If you have something to say, you should feel free to say it, even if we're going to be running over a little bit. We do try and keep things on track. Okay, this is about the board retreat. So this was about, do we want to shift it to be on a weekend again? Do we want to have it midday? Bottom line is 75% of you like the existing structure, which is that we meet on a regular board meeting day. We just start an hour early and we run for 4 hours. So we're going to go ahead and hold with that. The retreat this year will be in October. And then in terms of content, I'm gonna need some help with that. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, but 40% say, hold on, let me pull it up, see if I can read it better here.
40% like the staff report and discussion approach we've been using the past few years. 40% like a mix of industry speaker reports and interactive discussion. And then there were a couple one-offs with updates on exciting new tech. Someone who's never participated before and doesn't know what to expect. And compliments on our guest speaker last year.
Great, thank you. And so what I can tell you is that right now we have Beth Vaughn, who is the CEO of Cal CCA, planning to come and just provide an update on what's happening around the state with respect to CCAs and the energy market writ large. So right now she is our designated special speaker. The agenda is we're starting to think about it, and of course we'll be meeting with the chair and vice chair and then the executive committee and then onto the board. So that is underway. Last but not least on this one, thank you all for reading policy 16 and confirming that you read it. It's really, really important that we have full participation and, you know, avoid absences. I feel like this board is very engaged and we're generally really good about that. So thank you all very much. And before I leave that, I did want to say you're having board office hours.
Yes, on Monday. I did let everybody on the board know. I know you all are incredibly busy, but if you ever feel the need to bring something up with me, you can do it there in the context of office hours, or email or call me anytime. We really do want to encourage open board communication with the general counsel.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, moving on from that. Any questions, I should say, about the survey? And again, if you want the whole thing, I'm happy to send it to you after the meeting. The good news is that we're not off track based on your feedback. I don't anticipate a lot of, you know, major changes at all in terms of the current operations. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mike for our state and federal legislative update.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, directors, colleagues, and members of the public. So I'm here to give you your monthly update on the latest legislative policy matters at both the federal and state levels. So big picture right now in the state, I think you all know that the legislature is on recess, the July recess. Still, there are negotiations going on behind the scenes, and we can expect, as always, a race to the finish next month in the month of August. So stay tuned. Lots of exciting stuff on tap. First of all, the state budget was enacted thanks to the last minute negotiations there. There's still a lot of things that are being discussed right now. So that includes trailer legislation for the budget, as well as greenhouse gas reduction fund, what to do with those monies. You know, even though the budget's been passed, we're still expecting a number of things to happen in the coming weeks. The governor's race, I'm sure we're all paying attention to that. The two candidates, both Becerra and Hilton, are changing the discussions on clean energy and in Sacramento. So we're seeing more discussion about affordability, reliability, and practical, shall we say, implementation. These two candidates are less enthusiastic than perhaps prior administrations. And this is affecting bills that we're tracking right now in Sacramento. So as to those bills, first of all is 2111 by Assemblymember Pappen. And that's our top priority. That's our co-sponsored bill that we have with the Abundance Network as one of our co-sponsors, as well as Sonoma Clean Power, one of our sister CCAs. That's our highest priority. You'll recall that's about transmission planning reform, focusing on how the state modeling could take into consideration multiple scenarios for better long-term planning. That bill is currently in Senator Probst. And then we have two Cal CCA sponsored bills. So the first is AB 1761 by Assemblymember Rogers. That's the PCIA data transparency bill, as you'll recall. So the idea behind that bill, as you may remember, is to introduce some sunlight as a disinfectant, shall we say, into the process, opening the books to everyone and helping us understand why these costs are coming about and allowing us to plan better moving forward. Then we also have SB 1138 by Senator Padilla. This is on RA, or resource adequacy flexibility. That one's also in appropriates. And the idea behind this bill is to allow LSEs to, under the slice of day framework that we have here in California, to trade their hourly obligations. And this would reduce the costs of compliance, saving, of course, us and our customers money, which is why we are very enthusiastic about this. And then I want to share one of the data center bills that data centers are, we're hearing about it all the time, both here in California, at the federal level, states across the country. So Senator Padilla, again, the same author as SB 1138, he's introduced 886. It's a new large loads bill. There was discussions that Cal CCA was leading on behalf of all the member CCAs. It has been materially improved in the negotiation process, which we're very happy about. There were some questions about CCA autonomy and authority. Those have been resolved. So we're in the last few things that we're working on that in good faith with the author. We're expecting that Cal CCA will take a full support position on that piece of legislation. Lastly, at the state level, I just want to mention, you probably have all heard that there's some rumblings about Diablo Canyon and an extension. 3 years ago, that happened at the very end of session. That may happen again. However, there is no actual legislation. There's nothing material at this time. We're keeping tabs on that, and Cal CCA is leading a process on behalf, again, of all its member CCAs. And if something material transpires, we'll bring it back to the board and we'll update you on that. Next slide, please. So, sorry, the other way. There we go. Thank you. So at the federal level, no surprise, we're all watching the news. Let's say that policy remains in flux. There's similar themes at the federal level, in terms of transmission, reliability, AI and data centers, and affordability. I should note that as we're approaching the midterms, gridlock is setting in, so we're not expecting anything material to happen before the end of the year and the seating of the new Congress. But we're still keeping tabs on what's going on there. So really happy that there's bipartisan support for transmission and permitting reform that we're seeing. Again, we don't expect anything in the near term, but high hopes that we'll get something down the road. It's focused on expanding transmission and faster permitting, which we would love. FERC has introduced a new framework for large load interconnection, cost allocation, and grid planning. This is, again, something that we're very excited about and was part of the topic of conversation that Sean and I and a number of our CCA colleagues had when we were in Washington back in April. DOE, again, no surprise, they're slowing electrification. They've restricted some rebates for replacing gas appliances with electric alternatives. And the last thing that I'll share with you at the federal level is the federal government continues to scrutinize California's authority to set its own standards when it comes to vehicle emissions. Obviously, this could have impacts on transportation electrification going forward, affecting the pace of that electrification. And with that, I'm done and I'll be happy to take any questions. Yes.
So can you give a little bit more information about the Diablo Canyon? What is Westlight's position on it, or the CCA's position on it? I'm going to speak to that.
Can I start?
You go right
So yes, so we have a policy platform that we adopt every year. There is nothing in the policy platform right now on this issue. So we don't have a position as an organization at this point. Does that directly answer your question?
That answers my question.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, almost done. There's a lot to report out on. So our community feedback forums, we've done 3 so far. All have been very successful. The next 2 are going to be focused on affordability They will be similar in format and content. The first will be in Los Banos on August 21st, working with one of our community partners down there. The second will either be late August or early September in San Bruno, working with climate resilient communities, and there will also be a Zoom option on that one. And the content is under development right now, but we're really looking at, what are the barriers to enrollment in our CARE program and other energy discount programs? How can we get around those barriers? How to understand them? How to explain customer savings and describe our lower rates relative to PG&E in a way that is accessible and not so confusing as it currently is. So more to come on that, but just so you know, those are happening in August, early September. A number of community events happening. These take us all the way through the end of September. Generally, summertime is quiet. Spring is really the time that it's super busy for community events. And here's our upcoming meetings. Reminder that next month, we are not having any public meetings, so we'll see you back here in September. And those conclude my slides. Are there any questions on the CEO report? Okay. Back to you.
I'm just gonna do
Public
a
comment?
quick check of public comment between the chair report and the CEO report. No hands raised online and none in the room. Thank you. Oh, I can do this too.
Yes, you can.
Our next item is the approval of 2 power purchase agreements for the Green Access Program with the power delivery term 20 years, starting at a commercial operation date on or about December 31st, 2028, in an amount not to exceed $35 million. This is an action item with Steve Campbell, our Senior Analyst of Innovation Strategy, presenting.
Great, thanks, Nellie. You just sort of laid it out for me, so we can skip to the maybe 2 slides. Do you have
Do you want
any?
this?
Okay. Sure.
You can control your own destiny.
Okay, so thanks, Nellie, for reading the recommendation. It's at the end as well. The Green Access Program was created in 2018 by the PUC. It's officially called the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff Program. Our customer-facing program is rebranded as the Green Access Program. The entire point and purpose of the program is to bring 20% bill savings, new clean energy to customers who can't typically adopt rooftop solar or who may not want to. So it's 20% monthly bill savings, generally for 20 years under this program. The eligibility is you have to live in a disadvantaged community as defined by Cal EPA and the Cal EnviroScreen. And the CCAs are authorized to administer the program. I think it's the second time CCAs are authorized to administer a CPUC program, aside from the energy efficiency programs. The program cost recovery here is reimbursable by the CPUC. It covers what's called above market generation costs, program admin costs, and the bill savings over 20 years. So the PUC gave us a 6 megawatt capacity allocation. I don't have my glasses on, so I'm turning. And we have the Dos Palos 3 megawatt clean power project brought online in March of 2025. And we have an interim resource contract right now for the remaining 3 megawatts. And we're seeking to replace that interim resource contract today with a lower cost. That's the 2 PPAs. We issued that in November 2025, and we received 5 offers from 3 developers. Oh, thank you. Thanks.
You issued a request for offers.
What's that?
You just forgot request for offers.
Yeah, we issued a request for offers in November 2025. We received 5 offers from 3 developers. 2 of the developers submitted non-compliant bids, essentially. Their costs were too high, and this program, since it's reimbursable, is capped by the CPUC on the cost. So the King Kettle Clean Power Project we're bringing you today was the most competitive offer price, which is obviously helpful. And it has the strongest interconnection pathway. It has what's called, and I won't get into it, an executed small generator interconnection agreement. That's very critical for bringing this resource online quicker and bringing the bill savings online quicker. Okay, so the project overview of the King Kettle Clean Power 1. It is the developer Renewable America. Renewable America also developed our Dos Palos project. It's a solar and battery storage facility. It is 5 megawatts, 20 megawatt hours. Commercial operation date is 2028, 20-year PPA term not to exceed 35 million, located in Kettleman City. For the environmental and labor and job creation, there's no known environmental impacts or issues identified. The developer has already had meetings with King County on a conditional use permit. And the projects we use a PLA and pay prevailing wage, similar to the Dos Palos project. I'm trying. It's not working. Okay, so if you remember, we were seeking 3 megawatts and we received the lowest offer was actually for 5 megawatts. And that interconnection agreement here came in, it's very, very important because that's what allows us to bring the speed to power online quicker. And it was at a very competitive cost. So it's one resource, and how we structured it is we are splitting it into 2 separate contracts, 2 distinct contracts. One is for a 3 megawatt, 12 megawatt hour BESS, that's a 4-hour battery. The other one is for a 2 megawatt, 8 megawatt hour BESS battery storage. The first one is totally reimbursable, as mentioned by the CPUC, and the second one is not reimbursable, but it folds into our regular portfolio at a very cost-effective price. And I think I'll end with the recommendation and take any questions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious if there's an opportunity at any point for Westlight to acquire more capacity from the CPUC. Is that a cyclical opportunity?
We do not think that opportunity exists right now. Not to say it never will in the future, but there's nothing sort of in front of us that looks like they're going to expand capacity for us, aside if we expanded capacity per se. But the program itself is not aimed to get larger. Things could change.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Looking for public comment? And we'll definitely entertain a motion. So for approval, Director McHugh. Second, Director Lorraine. Roll call vote.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton, Belmont,
Yes.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame, Colma, Daly City, East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City, Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae, Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Aye.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside. And the motion passes. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is approval of the 2026 California Public Utilities Commission Integrated Resource Plan submission presented by Shayna Levia, our Associate Manager of Power Resources, Katarina Malgrim, our Power Resources Analyst, and Sarah Mata, our Senior Manager of Power Resources.
Thanks, Nellie. I
job,
pulled
Nellie.
a fast one on you.
You did.
I just wanted to introduce this item. It's my great pleasure to introduce it to you guys and say a couple words in preface. The Integrated Resource Plan, or the IRP, you're going to hear that acronym a lot, is a process that's dictated by the CPUC that all the LSC, all the load serving entities in California go through every 2 to 4 years, depending on CPUC's schedule. It is not perfect, as you will hear about, but it is a chance for Westlight to engage at the state level in the conversation about how our clean energy future will be built. And you maybe saw in your board packet, 120-page document of analysis and policy recommendations. And when we make those policy recommendations, the state listens. And we are really proud to have that history and legacy of sophisticated modeling, practical and useful suggestions that the regulators are listening to. And I want to especially recognize Shayna and Katerina from the Power Resources team who put in a lot of work over the last 7 months to make this analysis high quality and the kind of recommendations that the state will listen to when we submit this report next month. So with that, I'll turn it over to Shayna, who was the lead author for our 2026 IRP. All right. I'll start us off and Katerina will, I'll hand it off to her after a few slides. All right, here's a recommendation for the board tonight is to approve the results of the integrated resource plan analysis and the submission of results as presented by staff or in a form substantially similar to that presented by staff, and direct the CEO or designee to prepare and submit the final narrative and data templates to the CPUC on or before August 10th, 2026. So I'll start us off with some introduction and regulatory background for the CPUC Integrated Resource Planning process or IRP process. So first of all, why does the IRP exist? So we have electrification and load growth. More people are buying EVs, buildings are being electrified. We have to plan for data centers in the state. At the same time, the state has very ambitious climate goals, most notably for the electricity sector is to transition to 100% clean electricity statewide by 2045. At the same time, we need to maintain a reliable electric system. So we have to keep the lights on during the hottest and coldest days of the year. And while doing all of those things, we want to keep costs as low as possible. So affordability is another key component here as well. And so the IRP is the state's planning tool to achieve all of these objectives. And it seeks to answer what type of resources we need to procure and on what time frame in order to meet all of these objectives and meet statewide goals. So moving on. So what is integrated resource planning at a high level? Katerina is going to get into our specific process for our IRP, but this is like an example of what a load serving entity like Westlight or would be doing in California or perhaps in New York or even in Arizona. It's kind of like a general process. We have your supply options. These are things that you could realistically procure and be built in the time frame. This would be wind, solar, geothermal, battery storage. We also have goals and constraints. For the CPUC IRP, we have a few constraints put on us by our regulators, like the emissions targets that we have to meet or a specific reliability target you have to meet every year. And we also have internal targets that are also a goal and constraint, like Westlight's, goal to be 100% renewable by 2030. And so that was a goal and constraint in our modeling as well. And we also have our load and load management options, which is the electricity our customers are using today and what we forecast they will be using in the future. And for the CPUC IRP, that is also an assigned value, the load forecast. Putting those three things together, our modeling team does some modeling, iterates on that modeling, and out comes the integrated resource plan. So what type of resources, how many megawatts of wind, solar plus storage, and geothermal on what time frame, and how to go about procuring those resources. So what does our CPUC IRP have to do in order to be a compliant integrated resource plan? That's to meet our CPUC assigned load forecast. We have to meet our CPUC assigned reliability targets, and we have to meet our CPUC assigned emissions targets. So those are the three primary things we are seeking to solve for in our analysis, in addition to Westlight's own goals. So those are the regulatory goals primarily. So what the CPUC IRP is and isn't, it is a planning scenario, but it is not a procurement commitment. So in the narrative and in the results that Katerina is going to go through, you're going to see a supply stack of what we think the future will look like, but it is not committing Westlight to that supply stack. So we're not saying in 2035, we're going to have this specific supply stack. And the CPUC isn't going to look at our document and say, hey, Westlight, you said in 2026, by 2035, you'd have this amount of wind and this amount of solar. They're not tracking to that. They're looking for us to make a planning scenario that they could use to plan statewide. And it is a required compliance filing. We have to submit it on a regular cadence, and it has to be approved by our governing board prior to submission. So that is one of the reasons why it's before you tonight. Again, it is not a budget. There are costs in the IRP, assumptions about what the future resource mix might, take. But we are not seeking approval to procure these resources or, spend this amount of money on any of the resources. And again, this is a planning scenario and a compliance filing. However, as Sarah said, it is a way for us to help steer the state's clean energy strategy in a way that we think would be more effective and in the direction that we want to see for the future. And kind of to my points earlier, it's not Westlight's internal procurement plan. So what happens after we submit the IRP? A board approves the IRP, we'll be submitting it by the deadline of August 10th of this year. CPUC then combines all of the IRPs from all of the load serving entities, so the IOUs, CCAs, and direct access providers. They then come up with what's called the preferred system plan, which is what they think the statewide resource portfolio should look like. They will send that to CAISO, and then CAISO uses that in transmission planning in order to plan for what poles and wires they need to build in order for us to bring those resources online and meet the state's clean energy goals. And so this is the end of the intro section. Does anyone have comments on overview regulatory process before I hand it off to Katarina? Hearing none.
All right. I'm now going to talk a little bit about how we approached this project. So the first step here is really to design some scenarios around what we thought the future might look like. And to do that in this long-term planning framework, we need a lot of different data inputs. And so on the table on the left here, you can see some of the different sources that we used. Some, as Shana mentioned, comes directly from the CPUC. Some of that data we get from third-party market intelligence providers, and some of that data we already have internally. And so we combine that all into some different scenarios, which we then run through our deterministic portfolio planning tool called the matched model, which basically will determine what mix of resources meets all of our requirements at the least cost. And so we'll take those portfolio results, look at them. Based on those results, we kind of go back to the beginning, tweak some of our assumptions, add some different scenarios. And so we did that process a couple of times before we landed with the portfolio that we felt met all of the requirements in the best way. We performed a second step of analysis on top of that, which is to then take that portfolio, do some stochastic modeling on it. So basically, how would that portfolio perform under a range of different market and weather scenarios? See how that results looked. Sometimes that led us back to the beginning again and tweaking some of our assumptions and running the whole process before we arrived to this sort of final recommendation that I'm going to present to you in a minute. So my point here is really that this is a very iterative process where we considered a lot of different things before arriving at this final recommendation. Before I get to that, though, there's one more piece of context that's really important to keep in mind as we do look at the preferred portfolio that we're going to submit, and that is the load forecast. As Shana mentioned, the CPUC assigns us a load forecast, and that is the load forecast that we have to meet in this IRP. That load forecast is significantly higher than Westlight's own internal load forecast, as you can see in the graph here on the right. That brown line is the CPUC's assigned load forecast for Westlight, and the blue line below it is our own internal load forecast, with the colored bars below that representing the difference between the two forecasts decomposed into different categories. There's a bunch of different categories there, but the main takeaway here is this version of the load forecast that we're using for this IRP is the 2024 version from the CEC. And importantly, it was done before some of the recent federal policy changes. So this is done before the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and before some of the new tariff policies from the new administration. So it has a higher level of assumed baseline growth, baseline consumption growth, as well as higher electrification assumptions. So that's one. And then this version of the load forecast is also the first year in which the CEC was forecasting data centers specifically as a load modifier. And that we do not currently forecast any data centers internally in our internal load forecast. So there's a difference there as well that makes their load forecast particularly higher than ours. And so that brown line is the one that we will meet in the future, or meet in this IRP, but it's not necessarily the one that we'll meet in the future with our procurement plans. Any questions about the load forecast before I move on? Yes,
So
Director
if
Taylor.
you were to take the data centers out, it does seem a little unlikely you're gonna have huge data centers in San Mateo County. How do these lines look after that?
So data centers represent about 10% of the state's load growth, especially in the later years. So that top line would drop down about 10%. So it would still be a gap, but especially in those later years, that gap would be smaller. Yes.
I'm just curious, historic data, as we've gone through this, as PCE, but, yeah, who has been more accurate in the forecasting, the state or?
Well, it's an interesting question. I would say, load forecasting used to be relatively easy. Like it was basically a flat load. You could pretty much assume with some deviations for weather. Now is really the time when load forecasting has become much more challenging with data centers. With just electrification in general, the uncertainty has grown a lot. And so I think historical comparisons, we probably would be really similar. Like everyone would be forecasting similar, whereas now year over year, the CEC changes its load forecast quite significantly. So the more recent forecast is lower than this one. So there's a lot of variation that's happening year to year. So then I'll go ahead and show you what our preferred portfolio looks like. So to orient you a little bit in the graph, the bar on the far left represents our current portfolio as it stands today, which is around 1,300 megawatts of capacity. You can see the orange is storage, the yellow is solar, the green is wind, and the purple is geothermal. And to meet our CEC assigned load forecast, it would grow to around 3,440 megawatts in 2045 by adding a net 561 megawatts of storage, 358 megawatts of solar, 936 megawatts of onshore wind, and 297 megawatts of geothermal. I'm saying the net resources there means some of the resources currently in our portfolio, they will eventually expire. As those contracts expire, roll off, and we'll add new ones and build new ones. So that is net of the contracts that are set to expire. And so I think one interesting thing to note in this stack, you can see, in addition to just the overall growth, you can see we rely quite a lot on particularly onshore wind and geothermal in the later years. And the reason for that is that our modeling shows that those really are the most cost-effective resources to meet our load and to meet our emissions targets if they were to exist. That's not necessarily the resources that are currently in the pipeline, that are currently in development or on the interconnection queue, but we've included them in our model to try to signal to the CPUC that we think that these are the best resources to meet our targets as a state. Any questions on this? Yes, Director.
What's happening with the storage between 2035 and 2045? Looks like it goes down and then.
It might go down a little bit, in part because we have the wind and the geothermal here looks rather small, but it has a very high capacity factor. So what it's generating is actually quite a lot if you were to look at it from a generation perspective. And so with those additional geothermal and the wind, you actually don't need quite as much storage in order to meet the same, to meet your load.
Thank you.
Yes, Director.
Okay, so I mean, this basically shows more than double 2035.
Correct.
That seems like a really high rate of growth.
Yes.
Considering the challenges we've had in buying that big supply. So you're probably leading up to the answer to my question, but it just seems like a really high rate of growth in the short term.
Yes. And it would be a challenge if we saw this type of load growth. But I think the question is, we wouldn't actually, our forecasted load growth is not so high. So we would not actually procure this amount of resources.
Which means that this is an exercise for compliance that is frustrating because there is such a large gap between sort of the CEC approach and what is true on the ground. And that's one of our policy recommendations, to figure out how to get a little more real about this.
Dr. Lorraine, you had your hand up for a second or not? No, you're good?
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Could we go back to the
Yes.
slide, please? So from 2030 to 2035, the wind component. You mentioned sometimes it's not realistic and maybe this is guiding state. It currently doesn't exist.
So it's resources that would be technically feasible potentially, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's commercial interest or commercial development around it at this point. You know, I think that first would mean, and part of the reason we include them is like build the transmission around it to enable some of these projects, but technically feasible and commercially available is one of the disconnects of these of this exercise, as Sean called it.
Okay. Thank you. Exercise. Yes, exercise.
Great. Okay, so then moving on, as Shana mentioned, right, we have the sort of three things we have to do. We have to meet our load forecast, and we also have to meet our emissions targets and our reliability targets. And what this table on the left is showing on that first row is Westlight's proportional share of the 8 million metric tons GHG target by 2045. And then the second row in that table is what our portfolio would emit in each of those years. And you can see it's below our benchmark. The graph on the right then shows our sort of reliability requirements. The black line is how much qualifying capacity of resources we are required to have online every year to meet our reliability targets. And then the bars represent our resources. So you can see it's above that threshold in every year. The sort of gray color represents resources that are already online, the dark gray. Brown is resources in development, and then the lighter gray color is the sort of new and planned resources. So as I mentioned on the last slide, the portfolio is a mix of things we already have online and then new resources that would phase in over time. Any questions on emissions or reliability? Then the last slide I'll show is a slide about our costs, which are expected to increase over time. So what I've plotted here are some box and whisker graphs of the price per megawatt hour of our portfolios. The graph on the left has that value in nominal dollars, and the graph on the right has it in real 2026 dollars, so controlled for inflation. And you can see in both nominal and real terms, our costs are projected to increase over time. And that is largely a reflection of the higher costs associated with the new resources that are added to our portfolio across the planning horizon. Any questions on costs? Director Taylor.
So if we take our realistic forecast instead of our exercise, how different are these numbers?
It's a good question. We're doing now sort of a similar exercise here with our own internal load forecast. So I don't have the exact numbers yet, but currently it's more similar to the 2028 year is, mostly contracted resources. So similar to that. Yes.
So you mentioned that the expectations they were from 2024, so they didn't take into account the big, beautiful bill.
Yep.
But in terms of the cost estimates, since we're making those now, are they based on, the current state of when?
Great question. The costs actually do take into account the recent new federal policies and tariffs and everything. So those costs are a bit more reflective of the current environment.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll pass it back over to Shane to finish us.
All right, so this exercise is, a required planning and, compliance exercise, but it is also, to Sarah's comments earlier, a big opportunity for us to provide informed and constructive feedback back to the CPUC on specific issues that we have come across through our modeling, and also just over time as we continue to be kind of a player in California energy landscape. So I'll get into some of our policy recommendations. There are more within that 120-page long document, but these are some of our top level policy recommendations. One of them is to acknowledge uncertainty in load forecasting. Evidenced by Katarina's earlier slide, the state can and does over forecast load when it relies on more speculative large load growth, or when they're forecasting a new type of load for the first time. And this can have negative impacts for customer costs if those load forecasts are actually, if any requirements for procurement are coming in relation to those load forecasts. And so we have our recommendation is to essentially work with CCAs and other load serving entities who partner with the communities, are familiar with their communities, and we don't expect data center load growth in San Mateo County, for example, and to kind of check those assumptions with the state load forecasting bodies so that we can kind of reduce that uncertainty in these load forecasts moving forward. We also support the development of diverse clean energy resources. As Katarina mentioned earlier, we do in our modeling rely a lot on onshore wind and also geothermal resources later on in the planning horizon, because they are the most cost-effective resource to meet the goals that we need to meet, including the reliability targets and the emissions targets. However, there is this disconnect between what is best for the state and what is most cost effective for the state, and what is commercially available and what developers are actually willing and are able to build at this point. And so we want the state to continue to support the development of these more diverse resource types, but also keep in mind that when our regulators come up with a procurement requirement or procurement program, to keep in mind this disconnect, and that these resources may not actually be available to contract, and we should not be penalized because we can't get these resources to contract. So that's another one of our policy recommendations. We also recommend avoiding market distorting procurement mandates. Recently, the CPUC has issued procurement mandates to load serving entities like Westlight, where they say you need to procure a certain type of resource by a certain online date, and it needs to be this many megawatts. And that is problematic for a few reasons. And for one of those reasons, it limits competition. It kind of makes us a price taker, and it creates like a lot of competition for scarce resources, which can drive up costs. So we recommend keeping, procurement requirements as technology neutral as possible, so that we can make the best decision for our portfolio and the most cost-effective decision for our portfolio without having to meet a specific type of resource, and ultimately save on costs. And then we also recommend better alignment between resource and transmission planning. A lot of the state will rely on out-of-state resources or import resources in order to meet clean energy targets. And currently, those are not well accounted for in the transmission planning process, even though we are including them in our IRPs. Sometimes they're explicitly omitted when the CPUC tells CAISO to plan for something. So we recommend to kind of fix that and not change the IRP that we're submitting, and actually plan for those out-of-state resources. Also, currently, kind of to the earlier comments, the current resource planning process is perhaps a little bit overfit for our preferences. So we're making this plan, we're saying, oh, we want this wind and geothermal, but the developers aren't building that. And so when the CAISO gets the plan and they're like, well, we want to build all this wind and geothermal, or the CPUC says this, there's not really a mechanism for them to take into account developer feedback into the process and to actually make it a more robust process from all sides. So those are our top level recommendations. Any questions on those before I keep moving? Director Taylor.
A little bit to why the developers aren't moving on wind power. Is it regulation and regulatory environment? Like what could CPUC do that would make it so that this stuff could get developed? Because I mean, that's sort of our premise here is we go through this exercise, we're saying we'd really like to encourage this, and we're hoping through that process that CPUC encourages more of that, but how might that actually look in the real world? Like what would we have to do? Or what would they have to do?
That's a great question. I'll start us off and some others might need to chime in as well. But there is some particularly permitting challenges. A lot of it is federal too at this point, a lot of anti-wind federal sentiment out of state and also I think perhaps in state as well. Sarah, you want to come up? And then also if there's not available transmission capacity in that area, that the resource may not actually be built. So it's kind of a little bit of a chicken and egg issue where like we need to provide this input in order for the transmission to be built, but the developer's not willing to build there because there's not transmission. So it's, yeah, we're trying to solve for both of those.
And I'll just mention that we're co-sponsoring AB 2111 from Assemblymember Pappen, because that's exactly the scenario we're trying to address is have more robust transmission planning. So don't just plan for one scenario, plan for a range of scenarios so we can be a little bit more flexible in what we're looking at to connect to the grid. So Sarah, did you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just add my little 2 cents. I agree with everything Shayna said. But in my mind, it's like a wind is dying a death by 1,000 cuts. And you can kind of see it. Once you start looking for it, you see it in a lot of small places. And I think part of this, our policy recommendation here is to try to encourage a state level conversation. Even you guys at the local level, you can talk to your colleagues in other counties that like wind is an important part of meeting our climate goals. And we need to be more wind friendly in our state. And, you know, when you start looking for it, you'll see it in a lot of places. One of our existing projects has been talking to us about decommissioning their wind turbines and replacing it with batteries because they think that's what the county wants them to do, for example. So like little things like that, we want the state to take a more holistic approach and try to encourage more wind development. Thank you. Great question. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Ryan?
I'm sorry if this was already answered, but I guess I'm curious to get a sense, you know, based on like what you're just mentioning, right? If we're talking about adding wind in our forecast as something that Westlight sees as a pathway to the most affordable way for us to meet future capacity goals with our greenhouse gas emission goals, et cetera. And yet wind is facing these headwinds, you know, how are we coming to this conclusion, or like what is informing that conclusion? Is it like maybe looking to maybe other countries that are able to scale wind to a certain point? Is there like a real life, real world evidence that goes into the modeling, or how do we come to this conclusion then?
Yeah, I can start that, and if Katerina wants to chime in as well. So part of the modeling inputs are cost assumptions. And then so there's, you know, the cost of the resource and then the benefit that you get from the resource if it matches your load and can reduce emissions better than like a solar resource, for example, then it essentially you get more bang for your buck, right? So like you could either build a bunch of solar so that you can be able, and battery storage so you can have, you know, reduce emissions in the winter, or you could build less wind and for lower cost and meet your load in the winter. So it's kind of a result of the modeling that it became the most cost-effective option. Does that answer your question, or?
I don't know, because I feel like we were just talking about how, you know, at the federal level, for example, there are obstacles to, you know, achieving the sort of wind like transmission, but on one level, and I don't mean to get too into the weeds on this, so I'll step away after this, but like on one level, we're talking about what it takes to even create wind energy that people can buy, right? And to me, it just seems like that on top of everything else we're talking about with regard to legislation and changes to things, it seems like all those could potentially have impacts to the rates and how much this would actually cost us. So it seems to me like just on a high level, like right now, what we're hearing today is that, you know, wind is getting maybe more expensive or harder to procure or both. And yet we're still forecasting that wind would be the cheapest way for us to meet our goals. And I'm curious how that is how is so.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's kind of a reflection of what is the makeup of California's current energy system, right? If you sort of think of it now, There are a lot of solar, a lot of battery, and when we need the electricity most, I think if you sort of take a long-term look at this, which is the goal of this project, you see that sort of the times when we become most energy crunched is now shifting from the hot peaks of the summer into overnight and into the winter. And that is when the wind profile complements really nicely. So basically what we're saying in this report is like, we should try to pursue some of these wind projects that, you know, might be a little bit more expensive, but the alternative is to overbuild solar and storage so much that it becomes a more expensive option in the end. So I think it's a matter of the profile complementing nicely what we already have and what's already available, to try to make sure that we can, you know, do this on a every month, every hour basis. That answers.
And can I just chime in really quick? Let's remember that what's in here and what is projected isn't necessarily what we will procure. So right now, the cost of wind is super high. Feel free to chime in, but we've been in some discussions about a repowering project, and the price is, you know, I can't say it in a public setting, but we're not having it. So, you know, there's also just a little bit of just lack of availability, commercial availability. And so right now, please chime in, but you know, we are at a place where we're just gonna wait and see a little bit around what the market does with wind, determining, you know, what's happening. We just brought our New Mexico project online. Unfortunately, we're at sort of a peak geographic capacity with that per our policy, so we can't take more of that. So right now we're a little bit wait and see, but the pricing is crazy right now.
But this is all aspiration, that's the point. And it really is, we hope to drive the system toward this goal. It may or may not get.
Exactly. And this is just me now, but you know, the frustrating part about all of this is that the state uses all of this exercise, which feels a little bit hypothetical, and is hypothetical in many cases, to drive transmission planning and then to drive procurement orders, which we have to pay for. And so whether it's wind, geothermal, whatever it is, I don't want us to get too wrapped around the axle on this IRP. It's more about what are we going to do going forward? And I know we've been talking about that in our procurement working group.
So this exercise, is an exercise, and the current wind that's available is very expensive. So my question then is, looking at new wind locations in California and having the transmission approved to do that, is that the biggest thing, or what's the biggest block of this? Is there not enough wind in California? The best locations are already taken, and then it comes down to transmission, as we saw in with Pattern Energies over in New Mexico. They had to build their own transmission line, and I'm sure that would be a lot more difficult to do in California than in New Mexico.
It's a good question. I'll probably take Sarah's phrase from earlier. It's like a death from a thousand cuts. Like it's all of these things leading to it being hard to develop. I don't know what, if we were to rank, what would be the number one issue?
Yeah.
Oh, Mehdi's here. Mehdi, you guys have the whole team except for Roy.
Hello, everyone. Mehdi Shariari, manager of planning. So basically, like one of the challenges with California is like we have already built like most of like the good places that have wind resources. So like the places that we have to build more wind farms have lower capacity factors. Means like that's why developers know if they have to build wind farms there, it will be more costly. So there will be more challenging for them to find like LSCs, like CCAs to contract for those. That's one of the challenges we see with the wind in California. And as Katerina mentioned, it's a good complement for like solar resources. It might be more expensive, but you might only need, let's say, 1,000 megawatt hour of a wind resource to fulfill your load, versus you might need like 10,000 megawatt hour of a solar at a cheaper price that at the end of the day could become more expensive. And then you have to add like expensive storage to that solar resource as well. So all of that like comes into play. And another issue is like as new wind development is more expensive, the existing wind resources are also increasing their prices because they see the market allow for that. There's no addition, like there's no increase in their cost. They just see the market allows them to sell their projects at a higher price.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Move on.
We're almost there.
Next steps. So we've been at it for over 6 months, and we are almost at the finish line. So tonight is the board approval of the IRP. After that approval, we'll be submitting it on August 10th to the CPUC. So it's very exciting to be almost done with this. Great, and here's our recommendation again, and I'll pause here.
All right, public comment? Okay,
So I would move to approve the integrated resource plan.
do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Director Fung, roll call vote?
Yeah, so sorry, the document was completely, where, okay.
It's been one of those days.
It has been incredibly challenging tech day. Well, I can't type, so let me just grab a pen and paper and we're just doing this the old fashioned way.
So while she's doing that, I just want to say, I thought this was really well done. I mean, I get the frustration, but I still think what you guys did was important.
Agree.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, could I please get the motion maker and a seconder?
Taylor and then Fung.
Thank you. And San Mateo County.
Yes.
San Mateo County. South Atherton. Belmont.
Aye.
Brisbane.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome. Colma. Daly City. East Palo Alto.
Yes.
Foster City. Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Hillsborough.
Yes.
Los Banos.
Yes.
Menlo Park.
Yes.
Millbrae.
Aye.
Pacifica.
Yes.
Portola Valley.
Aye.
Redwood City.
Yes.
Bruno.
Yes.
San Carlos. San Mateo.
Yes.
South San Francisco.
Yes.
Woodside. Okay, and I know that that motion passes and I will tally that up beautifully later. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of a recommendation to award the 2026 Dave Pine Community Energy Award to community outreach workers, Promoteras. An action item that'll be presented by Kirsten Andrew Schwinn, the Associate Director of Community Relations and Climate Equity.
Right. Thank you, Nellie. Good evening, everybody. On a lighter note, we're going to give an award. So again, yeah, this is an award that we created here in May in recognition of former Supervisor Dave Pine and the founding board chair of Peninsula Clean Energy. As he set up this award, we'll be giving one per year. This award will be public recognition, including the honoree's name on a plaque in the new Westlight Energy Board meeting room. There's no monetary component. It's all fame and glory and recognition. For the selection process, we asked staff and board members to put in nominees. And I want to thank the members of the selection committee who joined us in evaluating those nominees. So thank you. Supervisor Dave Pine actually joined us for that committee. Director Corso, Director Mackin, Director Martinez Ceballos, Director Medina, and Director Nash. Thank you for serving on that Nomination Evaluation Committee. And we had a number of submissions, which we evaluated on the criteria set out by this board, based on whether the work advances Westlight's mission, demonstrates the potential to achieve significant greenhouse gas reductions, advancement of community equity goals, and projects or initiatives that are, of course, conducted within our service area. So after evaluating all the nominees on those criteria, the committee recommends nominating or awarding the inaugural Dave Pine Award to a group of people, the community outreach workers. Most commonly called promotoras in Spanish. And I'll tell you a little more about these folks. And a number of them are in that photo there. That's actually from a training that my colleague Lily Meek did last week with the promotoras from two of our community groups, El Concilio and Nuestra Casa. The promotoras, as they're known in Spanish, they're actually known by a different name in Tagalog. The promotoras are often women, not always, but often women who are well connected in immigrant communities and serve as trusted bridges between government agencies and their neighbors. Many of them operate mostly in Spanish, don't speak that much English, but have worked with us for years on reaching Spanish-speaking residents to make sure they understand what Westlight is, what it's doing on their bill, why they shouldn't opt out, and helps us keep our customer base. But they also do a lot of promoting of utility bill discounts to make energy more affordable. Make sure they know about the care discount, the FARA discount, the medical baseline discount, all of that. Make sure they know about the programs that they can take advantage of to reduce their bills and to help electrify, especially electrify transportation for renters. Many of these folks have worked with us for years. One in particular, Marta Agustin, formed a network of promotoras across all the organizations that work with them in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties. And I see her everywhere. At any Spanish event, she'll come up and I say, wait, Marta, you heard me say exactly the same thing at the last workshop I did. She says, every time I learn something new. It's just an honor to be able to present this recommendation of the committee to this group of partners of ours who have been very effective in making sure our entire community knows about Westlight and the benefits of our organization and helps them take advantage of it. So the recommendation is to approve awarding the first annual Dave Pine Community Award at the September 30th, 2026 Impact Summit hosted by Westlight Energy to community outreach workers. Yes.
So I think, did you just ask board members for nominations or did we take nominations outside the board?
Board members and staff.
Staff, okay.
Yeah.
So everyone here knows what's going on. That's great. I just wanted to say maybe someone, if people nominated, just as a follow-up, like if they're not here, just to send a quick letter saying thank you for participating in our process and for nominating blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. This is who won, and invite them to come, make sure people know when this is gonna happen. I think it's just appropriate follow-up when people spend the time to fill out an application and submit a name, that it's a good way to make sure they'll do it again the next year.
Thank you. That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Go ahead and send it to yourself.
Yeah.
I put in a nomination. I won't say who, but yeah.
Any other questions? Any motion?
So move.
Need public comment?
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Public comment on this item, so please raise your hand in the Zoom application. Nice enough.
All right, Director Lorraine.
Move approval.
Second.
Second from Director Nash. Roll call, please.
Back online. San Mateo County?
Yes.
San Mateo County? Atherton. Belmont,
Aye.
Brisbane,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City, East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City, Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Aye.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside. Thank you. The motion passes.
Fantastic.
Good evening, directors. This will be a brief presentation, actually no presentation at all. We are asking for approval of an agreement with our CEO, Sean Marshall, for the term of July 1st, 2026 to, that should be June, the end of June of 2029. There's the actual contract is actually attached to your board packet. We're not going to go over each of the pages of that, as you've all seen it many times at this point. But we are asking for the board to approve that contract and the recommendation that you see before you on the screen. That contract, just to briefly summarize, included the salary increase that was recommended by our 3-member council who went through the process with Sean and also worked with our team in-house at Westlight regarding Sean's goals and other feedback that was integrated into the process. And you should see in that contract also the additional vacation time and the bonus structure that was discussed throughout. As Director DeGolia pointed out at our last meeting, the executive committee has the last say in terms of bonus allocation. So that will be approved, hopefully, in our next executive committee meeting. That's how we've structured our contracts in terms of employment. If there's any questions at all, I'm happy to answer them, but I know that we've been going through this process for a few months now. So thank you all for your patience and to the team for their contributions. All right, is there, oh yeah, no questions?
No.
Yeah, is there any public comment on the contract or the recommendation? All right, I would request a motion.
So, second.
Director Fund, Director Taylor. Roll call vote, please.
San Mateo County,
Yes.
San Mateo County, Atherton, Belmont,
Aye.
Brisbane,
Enthusiastically, yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Colma, Daly City, East Palo Alto,
Yes.
Foster City, Half Moon Bay,
Yes.
Hillsborough,
Yes.
Los Banos,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Aye.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Aye.
Redwood City,
Yes.
San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos, San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco.
Yes.
Woodside. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. I look forward to working with all of you for the years to come. It's always a pleasure.
Our final item on the agenda is board members' reports.
I have one.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So this is sort of peripheral to the work we do, but I thought it was important to share it with everyone. You may have seen on Friday, July 17th, the Advisory Council for Historic Preservation, which is also acronymed ACHP, proposed some very significantly damaging revisions to the regulation for what's called Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act.
If implemented, these changes would dramatically diminish the effectiveness of section 106 and protections for historic and cultural places. There's some additional context that you can read, and I'll share this out in an article in the Washington Post. And the reason I bring this up here is that it would mean that federal agencies will no longer be required to try to avoid or minimize damage to America's historic architecture, neighborhoods, and landscapes. So what that does is it just really opens up like the opportunity for drilling and mining on our federal lands with zero public comment and no really virtually no restrictions. This came to me through my work at the National Trust. We are working, vehemently across the country we work very closely with a lot of our tribal and indigenous partners, and we also work on trying to save a lot of federal lands. So the reason I bring it up is if you go to savingplaces.org, which is the website for the National Trust for Historic Preservation, there is some information there that you can use to provide public comment before next Friday. And so I think it really impacts us with the work we do around preservation and, obviously climate and the issues that were going on. And it's particularly jarring to me that we're banning wind and solar work. And then we're opening up and, creating this other opportunity for more damage and pollution to our environment. So I think it's very germane to our work and what we're doing. And if you need other help or want other questions, you can call me. There's also some additional information in New Mexico on the Cacao reservation that is proposed to be diminished by 90%. For more mining, drilling, et cetera, by the federal government. We are building wind out there, and these kinds of trade-offs, no wind, but we're going to do this, are again, I think it's important for the federal government to hear from people like us and elected officials that these are not, these are damaging, these are problematic. They would also impact your own cities. For example, the El Camino Real renovation and the USPO in Burlingame were both 106 projects that were implemented and helped by that. So those are the kind of projects that would no longer be required to have public review and have opportunities for public input and thinking about how we use these resources in our own communities. So, and again, using things that are old and repurposing them is a way to save energy, and it's climate friendly and sustainable. So that's why I bring it up to this group, because I feel like this is a group that's going to care about it and it would impact the work that we do in the future. So anyone who needs any information, just feel free to ping me and I can find all the links for you to submit public comment.
Do you have a sample public comment?
When you click on it, it literally writes it for you.
Okay.
And then what I do is I go in and edit it myself and give examples in my own city of ways that this would impact it. Or you could give examples, like I'm on the board of Westlake Energy, and we are working for clean energy in these places. And this, while it may help permitting for some of those projects too, right now, that's not the way it's going. So you feel like public inputs, as an elected official, public input's always an important part of the process, and particularly partnering with the local communities and tribals, nations, and people like that. So yeah, that's all there, and you can take a look at it. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, there's some stuff on my LinkedIn account about it too. So just want to make everyone aware. And I thank Sean, because Sean has agreed to reach out to our partners in New Mexico that we're doing the wind projects with, and understand how this might be positively or negatively impacting them. And if, understand how that works with us, and see if we can help them with any advocacy around the federal lands that are under very strong attack. Yeah, I don't know how to say it nicely, but yeah, attack.
Thank you. Director Bowles.
We were talking about this earlier today. There's a similar attack from the federal administration
on the coast and pushing for more offshore oil drilling. I think the connection with Elon Musk, they're not so happy about the coastal commission and the limitations on spaceport expansion, and basically have ordered NOAA to review the whole California coastal zone management program. And it's, it's basically an attack on the coastal commission and proposed on California. You know, that they're, because we're not good supporters. But, I was remembering a couple of years ago that I heard all this exciting news. It was before Trump was elected about, like Eureka and looking at this being a center for offshore wind and, huge manufacturing opportunities, there. And, it's all related. We're doing the wrong thing, right? And the oil spill in Santa Barbara is what really galvanized the creation of the Coastal Commission, which has protected so much of our coast and access to everything. So it's important beyond us who live and serve on the coast of the state. So the deadline for comments on that is also coming up. I'm happy to send this.
May I back?
Sure.
So I know this is an agenda, so I don't want to go too far, but I did ask Sean if maybe in our newsletter, if people have these kind of environmental related, clean energy related issues, not like what we do with Mark and our lawyers, but more of a national federal level. If it clears through Sean and the attorney, we could have like a director's corner where we could share out with each other with the links and things in our newsletter. So we all are aware of what's going on and how that's impacting the work we're doing.
We'll probably call that board announcements.
Yeah, board
something like
announcements,
that.
which is fine.
Yeah,
It's not
and
advocacy through Westlake or anything. It's just us sharing.
awareness.
Yeah.
And I think our next newsletter goes out tomorrow.
Next one after that.
Yeah, so we'll pick that up next round. So if you have anything that you want to send through, please send it to me, to Nellie and Brianna. We'll vet it and include it. Good suggestion. Thank you.
Anybody else? Last chance. All right. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.
All right. Enjoy August.